I also want to make sure that everybody is aware of our upcoming live conference. So if you enjoy this webinar and you want to see more presentations just like it, I think you'll enjoy our Academic Center Summit. This is going to take place October 14th and 15th near our company's headquarters in Orlando, Florida. It's going to feature professional development sessions similar to this one, along with training in Accudemia and our other Academic Center management products and informational sessions both for current and interested clients. But the focus will be on that professional development, just like any other academic conference. We are excited to announce our keynote speakers. I want to mention we'll be having Michael Frizzell, who is the Director of Student Learning Services at Missouri State and a former ICLCA president, and Corey Hammond, who is the Director of the TRIO program at Southern University Shreveport and author of the book I Teach, You Learn, We Grow. If you're interested in attending, I am going to go ahead and put the link for that in the chat, so you can click that to find out more. So next, oh, there we go. So everyone, welcome to the latest webinar in our Engineerica Education Keynote Series. We are so pleased to be bringing you this complimentary presentation. For those of you who are new to us, Engineerica specializes in academic center management solutions for higher education. As I mentioned, one of our products is Accudemia. You may be familiar with that, or some of our other products such as AccuTrack, AccuSQL, or AccuCampus. And of course, I want to give a special welcome to any Engineerica clients who are joining us today. And for those of you who are not yet clients, we do offer a complimentary trial of our most popular system, Accudemia, so that gives you an entire semester to use it risk-free. And if you're interested, you can go ahead and email me and I can provide you some more information about that. And I'm going to put my email in the chat right there, rachelc@engineerica.com. So we started this keynote series for our clients and our contacts who wanted to learn more about best practices and trends in higher education. Each month we feature a distinguished speaker to talk about hot topics in the academic support field. We're still finalizing details for the next webinar, so keep an eye on those emails, our social media accounts, and we'll make an announcement when we open up registration for that one. And a quick introduction to myself. I'm Rachel Cook. I'm a client success manager with Engineerica. I was previously a learning center manager for 6 years. So like you all here, I am very passionate about higher education and student success. It's my honor to be leading this series and helping to organize it. And I also have with me my colleague, Nick Armstrong, our senior technical support specialist. He's here as my backup and to help with any technical issues that arise. Now, I am pleased to introduce you to this month's speaker. Lindsay Masters, MS, is a higher education administrator with close to 2 decades in the field, the majority of which has been spent in the areas of academic support and accessibility. She has been a presenter at regional New York and internationally, attended conferences, a keynote speaker, and a campus trainer. Her work and dedication to inclusion was recognized recently when she won Buffalo Business's first 2023 Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, Awareness Award, or IDEA. Love that acronym. All right, so Lindsay, I am going to go ahead and make you the presenter.
All right, so if everyone could take just a second to put in the chat if you are at a 4-year, a 2-year, a public or private, and what your role is and how long you've been doing it for. So I'm looking to just get a sense of where the background is of the people who are attending right now, so I can kind of direct my speaking points to that. So just a minute.
And just anybody responding right now, I just want to make sure everyone knows that the questions, the questions box is where you're going to submit that, and it's you won't be able to see other responses, so let me read out some of them. I'm seeing it seems pretty evenly matched against 4-year and 2-year. Let's see, writing centers, disability services, academic counselors, learning centers. I see a couple of professors, but it seems to be a lot of like support services like writing centers, disability services, things like that. And it seems almost pretty evenly split from a glance between the 2 and 4 year schools.
Perfect. Okay, great. I do have some resources that are pointed more toward accessibility services and some specific things about writing that I can put into the document as well afterwards. So that would be great.
And I'm also seeing a lot of folks, there's a few folks who say they've been doing this for a while, but I'm also seeing a lot of folks who've been doing it for a year or less.
Okay, perfect. Right across the board. Everyone can take something away. So I'm excited to have that little bit of diverse viewpoints going on in there as well. So thank you so much for inviting me. I'm really excited to have an opportunity to discuss all of these things. It's become a passion area of mine over the years of working in the field. I always like to do a little bit of a transparency on where I'm coming from in this, so you have a sense of who is speaking to you. So born and raised in New York, the upstate portion of New York, not the city, real middle class, white. I found out only about 2 or 3 years ago that I myself was neurodivergent. I knew I had other disabilities, but that one was a new one. I have a lot of degrees in my family, so it's rare to have grandparents and great aunts and uncles and things who went on to higher education. So that's kind of the area that I'm coming from in that. As you had said, you know, working in accessibility services and learning centers. But my background, starting with diverse things, happened a lot earlier on. I ended up falling into an African American studies minor, and I know I looked at myself as well, like, I don't know if I'm supposed to be the one who's going to take that on, but it was absolutely wonderful, and they were excited to have me learn things, and I wanted to leverage that knowledge and do something with it. And so when I went on to the higher education administration, that my concentration was in all things about diversity before it was really a kind of a big push at that time. So just working with how can schools better serve all students. Right now I oversee a tutoring center, and it's at a really big school. So I don't know, I'm sure there's bigger schools than I have, but I went from 2,500 total students at a private 4-year to 33,000 students at a public 4-year. So it's a big switch over for me as of September. Just a little background on you know, involvement in Inclusion and Diversity Council and working on a grant-funded autism transition support program at my former institution helped to train me in a lot of the things that you're hearing about. So this is over the span of quite a few years. And obviously, just to say, you know, my views are my own, not the institution that I work for, and not every neurodivergent person's views. It's just from my perspective. So for today, expect that there might be something that pops up, bubbles up a little bit, either feeling guilty, I may have done something that you said don't do. It may be confusion, it may be even just a dissonance in there somewhere where you're saying, but I know somebody who said that they're fine with XYZ, or I heard that this, or I myself feel differently than that, and that's okay. That's where I want you to live. I want you to kind of push into that a little bit, because think of this as a judgment-free, open-minded space to really think about things, consider things you hadn't before, and really reassess, you know, maybe what you have been doing, and get excited to learn about things that you are interested in from there. As Rachel had said, we're going to have the document with the resources and this recording to go back to. My focus is more on the learning center and tutoring side of things, but I'll touch into some other areas. So for a poll, oh, I don't know what happened. For a poll, I'm looking to find out if a student logs into Zoom or walks into your office, what do they see behind your head? Okay, so just take a moment.
And again, you can put that response in the questions box.
Right there.
See, oh, I'm getting a lot of good responses. Blinds, chalkboard, cabinets, space, tapestry. Yeah, I don't think we can see your webcam right now, Lindsay.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, my face is not on there for this slide.
oh,
If
okay.
that helps. Yeah.
Calendar, framed diplomas, bookshelf, Zoom background of the city I work in, a plant, bookshelf with photos, Star Wars figures, pride flags, stack of books and eucalyptus, whiteboard with a periodic table,
Okay.
whiteboard with some stickers about diversity, LGBT inclusion, lion paws.
Oh.
I want to know more about that.
Yeah. Okay. No,
Um,
that's great. All those,
yeah, yeah.
all those sound good. Yes.
I'm seeing some really fun stuff. Nothing alarming.
Yeah.
Except maybe the lion
Yes.
paws. I want to know more about that.
Right. So the reason I asked that is, as you can see on mine, I have a lot of stuff happening behind me. I will change it out here and there, move things around, but I too have a, Star Wars friend back there. So if you see my little Grogu there, some family pictures and things, but the reason I bring it up is to have students feel included and welcome and belonging. Obviously, we all know the ones that you typically think of, like flags and other things, but we don't always think about the stuff that maybe it's within our control to change a couple of things. So I see this lovely picture of this chair with a cushiony throw blanket and all this stuff. It's sometimes we can't control our environment to that degree, but if you can think about bringing in alternate lamps to kind of have some dimmer switch on that, you can get things to cover fluorescence on the ceiling lights, just to a panel to kind of soften that color. Looking at your desk surface, is it too cluttered or is it not cluttered at all? Both of those send some different messages in there. So if you have too many pictures of your family, then it looks like you don't want to be there, which very well may be true some days, but just making sure that you keep those in a range that aren't too many. Maybe a travel photo here and there to kind of connect with a student would be really great. Looking at the layout, the furniture, there's a difference between compliance and true accessibility when it comes to a space that a wheelchair can get through, things like that. Like the table might be at the appropriate amount that the law says, the table has to be this high, but is it comfortable to get in there? So really taking a step out of your office space for a moment, or even your center, and kind of sitting down in a wheeled chair for a minute and kind of just looking around, like, if I were to move up against this table, how does that feel? Can I back up and turn around in here? So looking at a lot of different pieces that you have, your signs that are up, do you have things that, give a little bit of your personality? So anything of support, anything that shows a little bit of you is all really helpful. So in the document that I'll be sharing, I have sort of a checklist of things that you can look through to see how you might reassess and take a look at your space in that way. One thing that sticks out that I know doesn't come up very often when looking at things like that is chairs with wheels and chairs with arms on them are actually not super accessible. So if you have all furniture that's all wheels and no arms on it and all of that, you can look at an alternate, like one chair that you have available that you could move into an office if you need it and things like that. So just little tips like that. So this is a picture of my former office that I had a lot more space in than the one that I have right now. But the arrows there you're seeing, I have like the red sign is for World Autism Day. The blue has information about a trans crisis hotline that is staffed by trans people, which is different than just calling a general crisis hotline, or even an LGBT crisis hotline usually doesn't have people going through the same things. And then my dim lamps, I had them turn the fluorescence off of there. You see a whole lot of different things happening here. So I have the disability pride flag is on my bulletin board there, the one that's dark gray with the diagonal striping. My pronouns are up there. I've got QR codes to things, comfy cushions, and different affiliations of my own, like the fact that I was in a sorority, things like that. So family photos and all kinds of supportive things. So just conversation starters, conversation pieces in there. So what I discovered belatedly was that students no longer understand what that nice blue clock means. Understanding the analog clock has been a whole issue going on where we're saying, but we are available. We have posted when we're coming back. We have a sign that says, if they're not reading the clock or understanding the clock, that wasn't helpful to us. So we had a whole situation of trying to figure out, okay, we've got to put a dry erase board and put when we're coming back, like written out. I know it's a whole, we could go on forever on how that is feeling, but I'd say the being aware of some of the ways that it's perceived, whether or not you're available and how you're responding, when you're responding, your reliability of being available in that space. So I say that more out of like office hours type thing, but you know, the center hours being posted places, things like that. But when you are thinking that a student is inferring that you're available because you have your door open, but there's not something that indicates, you know, hey, come on in, you might want to look at that. So for me, I have like signs that I'll put up right on my door, you know, that have my little cartoon self. And even if I'm working on something, you know, I have these little things, because I had some students that were saying, you know, I thought you were busy, so I didn't come and talk to you. So please, you know, come and bother me. I just have my headphones on, you know, come and say hi. So just thinking about ways that you can post that places. I think a great technique is to have multiple different ways for students to get in contact with your center. So there's often an email address and then maybe a phone number. But if there's like a form that they could fill out, a little chat box that they could do, if you had a student worker that could be staffed from a certain time to a certain time in one of the Discord or Group Me or some other kind of system to reach out, students are more likely to send a little question that way than they would even email these days. Email is actually a challenge, and I'm sure you have experienced that as well. So having multiple different ways, even slips of paper. I've seen some success with just having a little slip of, hey, suggestion or question or things like that, and throwing that in there. A open house for your center. If you did just a brief, even 2 hours, come down, get some stress relief tips for final exam week, and have students assigned to come down there from classes and things. Have it in pairs or small groups. If you tell a student come down by yourself, they're less likely to do it. So having 2 or 3 students at a time come down. I've also had success with 15-minute windows, so rapid fire 15-minute quick sit downs. And this was in my past position, I would set up like a little stanchion, like a little sign, and sit in the coffee shop, sit in the cafeteria area, so the dining area, and just say, you know, if you have 15 minutes, I can help you with time management for 15 minutes. Do you want a more extensive session? This is where we have them. We have students who do that. We have tutors who do that, you know, so kind of like tutoring to go, placing students at different areas and meeting them outside of that center.
I just wanted to mention, I saw a comment in here that says, I get migraines and almost always have my office lights off, so I have a sign that explains it and tells people to knock anyway.
That's it. That's exactly right. You know, say just full out, you know, my door is shut because it's cold out there. Please come in. Please bother me. Perfect. That's great. So decompression spaces, what I mean by that would be, you have a hustle and bustling center. Is there one corner or one area that you can set aside to kind of be distraction reduced? Maybe have a little bit less light in it? Could it have fidgets in there? Some little area to sit? You know, try to be creative especially when you're, you know, you can't buy new furniture, you don't have enough space as it is. How can you have some area set aside, or even some time frame? Like if you're open 9 to 6 and you said 8:30 to 9 is our quiet center hours, and you have to sign up in advance, and then you could have a session during that time or come and study during that time, just the way they do for like shutting down the mall or kid play places where they have sensory time. before or after, just to kind of change it up a little bit and allow for some of the differences in learning styles and things like that. And a way to request them that does not include calling on the phone, because the people who are going to need the decompression area are likely not going to be the people who want to call. So if it's just call us, just stop in and tell us, that's going to be the barrier to them asking. So if you had a way to digitally find that information out, you're more likely to get the ones that need that space. And also the way that you suggest it, it's the same as inviting someone to a party. If you say to someone who is neurodivergent, so autistic, ADHD, dyslexia, all of those areas, if you said to them, you can come if you want to, meaning, yeah, you can come if you want to, that sounds like a different message to them, like, well, yeah, I can, but do you want me to be there? They're not interpreting it the same way. So thinking through, we would love to have you here. There's a time from 8:30 to 9 where there's some quiet space as an option. And you connecting outside of your center, going to have lunch at the dining hall, or, going to other departments and just sitting in their seating area for the students that maybe are at risk and need to be coming down more, just engaging outside of your space. So when I talk about accessibility, one of the things that I always make sure to emphasize is that it's not just about students with disabilities when I'm talking about equitable access to these materials. All universally designed documents and websites and everything else, it's going to be beneficial to every single person that uses it. But it also comes down to students that maybe don't have reliable Wi-Fi. They might be sharing a device with younger siblings or their parent and don't have access to it all the time, so they have to use their phone for some of the material on your learning management systems. So anything having to do with how do you have them book a session with your tutors? Is it mobile friendly? So is the system that you use able to be used easily on a phone? Does it come out looking garbled? The accessible formats to the things that you're sharing. So making sure that your PDFs are anchored and labeled, and those terms, fancy words for, does a screen reading technology system that reads it off, can it read it, or does it see it as a blank slate or just an empty picture? Like, does it just say image, image, image? Does it read the information and then the page number and then it reads the title? If you don't have it anchored, if you don't have that set up in advance, then it could kind of like mix up how it's read. So all schools have IT and places, the people that are there to help you with that. So you can look into all those things, but I did include some resources for just kind of learning about what that means to make your PDF accessible. And it also comes down to alternative picture descriptions on things. So when you have an image that you want to right click on that image on a slide like this, and you type in a description of what that is, and not just what it is, but what you're attempting to evoke with it is also really helpful. So if you were typing in, we have a picture of a pineapple and we have a picture of sandals, and it's on our newsletter, and it's coming out saying like, relax with us, fun in the sun, tutoring is outside today, something or other. You're putting, yes, it's a pineapple, but you're also putting like, for summer fun. You're giving that person who can't see that information the idea of what feeling they're supposed to get from that material. So yes, that's for visual impairment. But if I am using poor Wi-Fi and I'm pulling it up on my phone, if you only put your newsletter image, the infographic, into that email with no other information, and it's a broken link and it comes up as just a broken picture, no one got that information anyway. So it's beyond just someone with a visual issue. It's I can't see it because it's too tiny, or the format doesn't come up right in my phone. So thinking through what they're using for that. Anytime that you have a presentation that you're giving, so you do a workshop online for a class, things like that, make sure that you're enabling your captions in that presentation. So for an online video, so anything that you put on your Learning Center site for, you know, here's a video about time management, make sure that it has captions on there. And mindful emoji usage. So this one I will demonstrate here. So if you are trying to relate to the college students and you're wanting to make it look cute and you put in a lot of emojis in a message like this, so you posted that up, either your learning management system or wherever you're putting it on your website, a screen reader might read this like, hello, smiling face, everyone, I just heart, hearing what your light bulb, like that. So if you are missing words and you replaced a word, like you meant to say, I just loved hearing what your ideas were from the reading. If you just put light bulb, they're going to hear light bulb and not ideas, and they might not necessarily connect the two things. It also can read them that way, but all at the end. So what it'll do is read the text and then all of the emoji descriptions at the very end of it. So hello everyone, I just hearing what your were from the reading, so get those reflections in as soon as possible. Smiling face, heart, light bulb, so on. So it's hard to imagine that, but when you're putting in your time and effort to make it pretty, just be mindful about where they are, what you're using them for, how it's read, and think that through before you do that.
That one was the most, I just, when you told me about that yesterday when we were practicing, I thought that was the most mind-blowing thing.
Yeah, you don't even think about it. And even on LinkedIn, like, and if they break, if the image breaks, then you've got a whole different slew of issues. Yeah, that one was a big one for me to learn because I loved to do it just to make it pretty and, connect, and yeah, that definitely. So for this one, not everyone has a family that looks like this. To come from clarity of, again, lens and privilege, like what I was speaking about at the beginning, that can make a world of difference with how included a student feels, how much they feel that you are aware that your lens is not the only lens, that your perspective is not going to be the same, but that you are open to learning about theirs, and that if you are saying something that does not connect with them, or that their feeling is actually offensive or some other misinformation that you're passing along, that you are open to hearing it. Because if you launch into things, whether it's a workshop for time management, a accessibility, whatever type of training you're doing, student event on campus, if you're not saying, I'm coming from this place, I know that that's not necessarily where you're coming from, but we can come together and talk about these things. It's important to do that. Oh, what's happening here? There we go. Oop. Sorry, my computer is like glitching. There we go. All right, there we go. Sorry about that. So you want to be able to show them that you're aware of where you're coming from, because without saying that, there is some question about whether or not you're saying, like, this is the only way. What I am telling you is the way, and that's not exactly the case. Slang, jargon, sarcasm, I fall victim to saying things in a funny, humorous way or a snarky way that maybe it's not landing with that student. They are not able to grasp that, whether it's like a language barrier or neurodivergent student that doesn't quite grasp that type of humor. So just being aware when you're doing it to either explain a little bit or get a sense of where it would fit in well, and where you need to be more literal and explicit about some of your steps and procedures and things like that. Explicit expectations, that's going to be you posting a do and don't on the wall. That could look as simple as those signs that you put up that you hope that students read about, please wait in these chairs, then sign in on the kiosk, then do this. Like having things everywhere that you could possibly think to show how they're supposed to do what they're supposed to do. What are the steps? Because part of the anxiety of coming to a new place and a center is really I don't know what to expect. It's a whole new thing for me, and I want to be clear that this is what's going to happen when the doors open. From the time I walk in the door, what can I see in front of me? And if you happen to teach a class, that's also really handy to say, I will be doing an agenda on the board each day. You know, we're going to go over these things. We'll review first, then we'll go over new material, and just having a what to expect for that session for that day. And I have a bunch of resources on how to work with trigger or content warnings, just in case you want to get some ideas for phrasing to be able to put that into a syllabus, or if you're going to show a video about something. Like the main one that comes up for learning center related stuff is you're showing a video or doing a role play or a skit that's about a harassment or something within a session. Like, what do you do if you're being harassed by the 2D, or you know, some other thing that would be considered inappropriate? So just how to word those. It's just good to have those as well. So I popped that into the document for you. So let's see here. So flexibility, we always have to be adaptable. Things change and evolve. If we find ourselves changing the date out on a workshop slideshow and doing it each semester out of, again, not enough time, not enough, you know, staff, all the things that go along with it, just setting aside a couple of times out of a semester to revisit what it is that you're doing is always a good idea as things change and evolve. Surveys being sent out to students that have come to your center, focus groups. If you find this particular community is not coming, this student population never comes, or they come once and they never come back, finding out how to get that information. If it means having someone that is not someone who works in your department, but you feel would be more relatable to those students, inviting them in to have that third-party conversation just to gather that information in a different way. You could incentivize it with some prizes. I got a lot of results from having a just a Amazon gift card. I also did a Rocket Book giveaway, which is the notebook that you can take a QR code scan and it sends your notes into a digital format and then erases at the end and can be reused. That one was a really big hit. The explicit, again, I'm always saying explicit statements, but this is an important one, the explicit statements of support. As an example, if you're doing a workshop where, let's say it's a training of some kind, or you have to do a, come into the classroom and talk about study tips, let's say, explicitly stating that you're there for them. You know that each person has their own life and their own circumstances that impact their ability to be resilient, that it doesn't all just come from within with willpower, that you are knowledgeable that there are some things out of their control, but what you can do is help them control these aspects, which will help them to feel better. That alone, just the two little sentences, just, you know, I recognize that you're a human being and you have a lot of different things going on, because sometimes we get an autopilot and we launch right into our material and we go, I'm smiling, I'm friendly, I'm a nice person. So I would hope that they would know they could come to me being very clear, I want you to come to me, this is what I can offer up. If I can't figure it out, I will point you to someone who can help you. All of that is really important in building that connection. I provide a lot of detail article things for you about trauma-informed approach. In a nutshell, that is approaching every conversation and interaction that you have with the idea that they have had some form of trauma in their life, and it impacts the way that they behave and feel and see the world. And it's varying degrees of trauma, but it's somebody has gone through something. And you look at it like, is their trauma bouncing off of my trauma? Did what they say impact me in a way that made me reactive to what they were bringing to the table in a way that I normally wouldn't be. Am I witnessing a trauma response in this student? So they are coming across combative, they're coming across avoidant, they're coming across just not engaged in the right way. You're feeling that they're disinterested. Those things could be everything from their body language doesn't show how they're feeling because it's not neurotypical, way that you would expect a student to be paying attention to you. They're not giving you eye contact or they're looking away, but they're paying attention, and you are projecting that they're not based on the way that their body moves. So just it's a consideration of everyone is coming from something, and maybe I'm getting whipped up about something. Was this a similar situation I had last semester with a different student? Am I starting to feel upset over this? And it may not be all of these factors. So rule of thumb is always, if there's a combative situation happening, if there's avoidance, think of it as connection seeking. This student is trying to get some help and they might be fighting it at every turn, but it's more likely that someone in their past has said something that made them feel that they weren't going to be able to achieve what they wanted to achieve. It just takes one teacher, one parental figure, somebody in their life to say something that colors the way that they see you. So you need to do the actions, walk the walk, show that you can be trusted, to have that and have them open up. And you can even say, it seems like you're upset with me based on the behavior that you showed me in our tutoring session, or based on the way you were acting in class. It seems to me as though you're having a problem with the way I'm instructing. Can we talk about what we can do to work on that, to change that approach? So just hearing, like, you're not saying that they're being combative, you're saying it seems like you're upset over something. Let's find out. Mindfulness incorporation is just keeping different methods around that could help students kind of ground themselves. So again, those fidget toys are good. Little headphones set up with meditations on there, just different opportunities, QR code scans if you don't have the ability to have a lot of headphones going on, if you just have them scan those, and then that would bring them to something to watch and calm down. And taking a moment when you meet with a student, when you train your tutors to meet with a student, just take a moment to breathe. We're about to jump into some heavy topics. Let's just take a moment to do some deep breathing before we get into it. It takes 30-40 seconds to just breathe and recenter yourself to get back into things. One of the more important pieces of this section is taking accountability for a time where something you did or said impacted a student negatively, so they were offended by something, versus what you intended to do. I hear a lot of, I would never intend to offend anyone. I would never intend to hurt them. I don't want to do that. My focus is always to help. I am aware of that, and I don't assume that any of you would want to do that. Nobody here for this is ever going to intend to want to hurt someone's feelings or offend. That doesn't mean that impact isn't greater than that, though. So I always look at it, if you hit someone with your car accidentally, you didn't intend to, they're hurt, and you just say, I didn't mean to though, and just kind of drive away, like that isn't okay. You know, it's the, what do you do when that happens? So taking accountability is, yeah, sure, you can say, you know, I never intended to do that, but don't leave it at that. You're saying, I never intended to do that, but I definitely offended you. I hurt your feelings. I want to make this right. What can I do to move forward? I'm going to research some things about how to learn from that. I'm going to move forward and do this XYZ, like make a plan. So moving forward after you have taken accountability is a really good way to show that student that you're trying. You don't have to be perfect.
I'm seeing a good comment in there in the chat, or in the questions box. It has been important to me to take ownership in the explicit communication. For example, it seems that what I am saying is upsetting you, versus that it seems that you are getting upset.
Yes, yes, that's exactly it. Yep, you're saying, you know, the story I'm telling myself, the story I'm hearing. Yeah, exactly. And then cleaning the slate, that comes from you had a bad interaction. That doesn't mean every time you see them, you think about that interaction, you layer on everything that they're doing in this new interaction and keep on tacking it on. You want to clean the slate, because if you ran into me on my worst day at the grocery store and then said, that's what that lady is like forever, I wouldn't want that either. Just going with new semester, new week, new day, new hour, we're moving past it, it's okay, and move from there. So briefly, terminology regarding race is always changing. It's always evolving. I mean, terminology about anything is, but we are moving away from underrepresented minorities, or URM, towards racially minoritized, or people of the global majority is being used more often. I'm not saying minority is never used, it's just, it's starting, we're seeing the path moving, just like we did from multiculturalism to diversity, equity, inclusion. So just so you have the most up-to-date, you know, current trends on this. There's an article that I included in the document that's all about, well, what do we call people? And it's really excellent in there to get more information. But another one that if we're talking about race is BIPOC, so BIPOC. So Black, Indigenous, people of color. Separating out the Black and the Indigenous was an intentional piece, because there are different layers of oppression that have happened with those particular groups versus all whole together, but keeping it as one unit there. If you are trying to speak about a specific race, when you're saying, you know, we have a real problem keeping Black male STEM majors in their field of study and having them come to our center for tutoring, don't put a sign out that says, we're looking for diverse voices, what would you like from us? We are seeking Black male STEM majors to find out information about, you know, our services. So you can be completely upfront, this is what we are looking to do. There's nothing wrong with saying that. Just a brief note, you know, that skin color doesn't equate and indicate race or ethnicity or nationality or religion. So making those assumptions, you know, we want to stay away from automatically assuming something based on the shade of skin tone. African American Vernacular English, or AAVE. If you're not familiar, just the dialects that are spoken and written, there are all grammatical structures to this, and it is legitimate, like all the different grammar rules that go into it. So if a student does write in that fashion or speak in that fashion, being cautious to not say we're looking for correct or proper writing or speaking. You would just use things that show that it's a parallel. Just in the field of academics, we use this style, and in your speech and everything else, you're using this style. They are not less than, greater than. It is just a different way, and the way that is acceptable for citations and everything else is this way, but not that it's proper, better, correct, those kinds of words, to have that when you're giving your feedback. There's a new study out on race lighting, which is collective gaslighting about racism. So the, you know, idea that so many people can tell you over and over and over, they didn't mean it like that, it's not about race, this, you're overreacting, you shouldn't be angry. That starts to really get in there going, maybe I shouldn't have, maybe it wasn't that bad, you know. So there's a whole, there's a write-up, there's a brief, and now there's a whole course that's for free that you can take as a little certificate course, and I put that information in there as well. It's really interesting. How are we doing on time? Okay, great. So when you're doing supplemental instruction, group tutoring, anything in a group space, being explicit about anti-racist discussion rules versus that civil discourse that you normally say. Like in most classes, it's we're going to have a judgment-free, civil, polite conversation about the topics that we're talking about. You might say, this is an anti-racist, anti-sexist, anti-homophobic space. And whether, you know, intentional or unintentional, microaggressions and other bigotry will not be tolerated in this space. It will be addressed and become a learning opportunity for whoever is, going through that. But please come and speak to me and let me know if anything does fall under that category for you, and we will go through the most, confidential and proper procedure to address this situation. That's a lot different than let's all be polite together, because that's giving that student that safety to say, I could bring this up and they are going to be there for me, versus other places and spaces that I wasn't able to do it in that way. Affinity group supports are excellent for tutoring. I saw some great success with, it was BIPOC STEM majors. And so it was anyone who was in sciences and maths, and having a tutor that was also in the community as well, and just having discussion groups and study time within different affinity groups. And that went for, there was one that was women and LGBT group and other things like that. So there's some great resources when they can help each other in that. You personally showing up at different campus cultural events, the student clubs, Black Student Union doing an event, show up, go to the event, be there, collaborate with them. Hey, does your club want to advertise that we're doing this tutoring thing? We'll come in there and have a representative to meet during your club meeting. Just think outside the box and make yourself known. Phonetic pronunciations are key. These were some real ones that I actually went through over the years. I think that to be intimidated by, extra letters than you're used to, or an apostrophe, is not enough of an excuse, not anymore. People can pronounce Polish last names all the time with extra Z's and W's and have no issue. But I mean, a common name of Huynh as a last name should not be mispronounced when that's the most common one that you're going to see at the school all the time. So really take a moment, have them repeat it a couple of times, have a survey go out where they put it in, where they type it themselves, and then you test it out. So those were all ones that I came up with and passed them around and helped other faculty and staff learn how to do it as well, based on just doing my very best to learn how to do it and be comfortable with it. With all of these areas, if you're curious about something, doing research from people in the community themselves is your best bet. So anything that I'm learning or speaking about with this area was all sitting back, observing what they were posting about, what was the latest information on Twitter that was going out, all of those areas was, I wasn't involving myself in the conversation, but I was paying attention to what was being said by each other and any educators. So I have a whole list of LinkedIn profiles that are excellent, very intersectional, different areas of race and disability and LGBT, all different speakers that I think would really benefit you to follow and see what they've been posting about. For body language, eye contact, physical contact, some of these things are important to know for different religious backgrounds and cultures, like staring into their eyes directly is rude. A female student can't be touched by a male student or a male administrator in any way, things like that. When are you having your pizza party? Is it right during Ramadan when people are fasting? You shouldn't do that. So just being aware of what those are, that they have different rules, and some discomfort about tutoring when it's another peer. They want to be tutored by a professor and it feels awkward to be tutored by a student. So just some couple of things in there. For the sake of time, do I have till 2 to go?
The
or?
webinar is we've scheduled it till 2:30. We're already getting some questions and comments
Okay.
that I would definitely love to highlight.
Sounds good. Yep.
So yeah, like if we wrap up the presentation around 2 and that leaves us time for questions, but whatever works for you.
I have just a little chunk after this, and then so I can move forward, or if you think it's a good.
No.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I'll move forward, and we'll ask all the questions at the end. Okay. So for neurodivergent students, so neurodivergent is the umbrella term for autistic, ADHD, dyslexia, dyscalculia, dyspraxia, and even traumatic brain injury, Tourette's. There's a lot of different ones that fall under this. It's just really the variation in the way that the brain works. So these students are going to be the experts on their own experience, because just because you know one person who is neurodivergent doesn't mean you have any idea how it manifests in everybody else. So just asking what you can do to better help them would be your best bet. There's a lot of times I did trainings on, faculty who were confused about a student who didn't seem to understand the directions. Like they would nod and go, yep, I got the instructions, and then they just would do the opposite thing, and they didn't know why. Well, we talked to his mother, we, met with these experts, all these other things, and they did not ask the student what might help make that a better situation. So always start with the expert. They're going to be the expert on their experience. You want to use neurotypical, not normal or regular, average, those kinds of words. So like the average student doesn't, just saying neurotypical covers all of that. Autistic versus on the spectrum, or someone with autism. We are now seeing a huge push in the community to use autistic. So I know that in the past it was, nope, we don't want to say that. We want to make sure it's person first and all of that. But the general consensus is that's like saying I'm a person living with whiteness. And nobody says it that way. They, no, this is what I am. This is who I am. So more of a pride aspect of that. And if you are asking questions of someone who's neurodivergent and they're giving you a bunch of shrug, I don't know, blank look, anything along that line, you might be asking open-ended questions, which is what we're all taught to do, right? With appreciative advising and counseling and things like that. Switch it up and make it a Likert scale, like a number scale, like how are we on a scale of 1 to 5 today in terms of how overwhelmed you are? And if they go 5, okay, what can we do? What's the first part that you want to work on? Then you can get into the open-ended questions. Sometimes it's just overwhelming. So giving maybe even like a couple of options. Do you want to do this, this, or that? Which one would you like to start with? That can help with the whole like silence and just, blank stare. Step-by-step user guides, screen grabs, videos, anything you can do to make your services a little easier to understand would be super helpful. So if you just have like a website with a bullet list of, stop in today and come and get a tutor, you might want to break it down a little bit further. If there's a system where they have to click in and actually book their appointments, show them on a little video of how to do that so you can access that each time. And then my little 4 C's here is when in doubt, remain calm. They might be getting a little, high strung over something. So you're remaining calm, that helps to bring down. You're clear, so as transparent as possible, very concise and consistent. You are keeping consistent with that system. So if you're saying we meet in my office, we sit down, we start the appointment, we go over the material, keep it consistent each time. And you just do those in any combination, and it will be a lot better for them to be able to understand what's going on. A virtual tour of your center, like a QR code scan right on the door, or a virtual tour video in your website would be excellent in helping alleviate some of that nervousness about coming to a new space, more likely to get people in there. Looking around your space for those stimuli, things that I was saying. So like, is the curtain a bright color that might be distracting to somebody? How's the lighting? How's the chair set up? In your sessions, allowing non-disruptive sensory stimulation. So that would be when you see them with fidget spinners or like clicking, tapping, things like that. The big question I always get is, but what if it is disruptive? So you don't want to offend, and they said they are autistic and they're doing something that is making it hard for you to think. Take the disability out of the equation and just simply address it as you would for anybody who is having some kind of thing that is disrupting your thought process. So we'll use clicking pen. You said, I'm sorry, the pen is a little distracting to me. Is there something else that could give you that same feeling to help you focus? let's think of an alternate way that you can get that feeling. So they are pinpointing, I like doing this motion, helps me to think, okay, what can we do that doesn't make a sound? Is there something that still gives that same feedback for you? Okay, great. You know, so you're not telling them don't have a disability or don't do your behavior that helps you. You're just saying that particular one makes it so it's hard for me to focus and I want to help you. So let's come up with a different way. Having a timer to keep on task, reserving some time at the end for a very excited discussion about a hyper fixated interest area. So some people think of it as, I don't know, the wording is info dumping on people, where it's just, I'm going to tell you a wall of information about something that I really enjoy. I like to think of it as monologuing. They trust you and like you if they monologue at you. So it's just, I'm excited to be here. I feel happy and relaxed. I can take off this mask and I can be me, and I'm going to just excitedly tell you about the latest comic book that I read. Save some time at the end. Just say, I love it. I'm so excited to hear about it, but we got to get through these 3 things. And if they kind of start in on it again, then you say, oh, we've got these 3 things still. Save that to the end. We're going to do it. Okay, we got to hit these 2 things, and it helps to keep it on track, to structure it a little bit. Walking and talking. I don't know about you, I've always had these serious conversations with my parents where you're in the car and you're both facing ahead and you're driving, you know, they're driving and then they speak to you about the most important thing because you're not staring directly at each other. Sit side by side. Don't look at each other if you don't have to. Back to back. Walk along, have a coffee, and talk and walk if that helps. You know, toss a frisbee. Just kind of think outside the box for that. And a brief note on puzzle pieces. They're kind of considered offensive in that they can make it seem almost infant-like with the primary colors. It kind of gives the impression that there's something missing, like a missing puzzle piece. So there's been a movement toward the infinity symbols that you see on there. So the colorful one is all neurodivergence, and the gold one is for autism specifically, because gold on the periodic table is AU. So those are the ones that are being shown more often, and you can see it behind my head there on my calendar. So that one really does make a lot of students feel comfortable if you have that posted. Let me see, I just want to make sure I get through. Okay, I'll go faster here. So for gender nonconforming students, they is easier to use than you think. If you were on the phone ordering a pizza and the person you were with in the room didn't know if you were speaking to someone specific and they just said, what did they say? How long did they say it would be? Just use they for everybody, and it'll get a lot easier. Replacing he, she on forms. So like when you've written out a form, just go in there and plug in they. And having some stuff like my pride flag up there has, you know, the main pride flag, but there's the transgender flag that's involved in there as well. As a wrap up, you want to ask yourself whose lens you're looking through. Is it my version or is it their version? How am I feeling? Be aware of your own things right now. You know, saying to the student, you go to sit down and meet with them, I'm having a rough time today, so I apologize if I come off a little curt. Just that alone could make a difference in how they had a reaction with you and interact with you, and shows your humanity. Try not to judge, challenge that assumption that you're having, and clarify what they want. So a lot of students don't even know how to articulate exactly what they're coming in for. It's just, what do you want at the end of this? What would you like to walk away with? A plan of attack? Do you want me to just listen to you? Do you want advice? Do you want me to just sit in quiet with you? Just find out what they're looking for first before you start giving advice. Reflecting back on both sides, you know, some students learn to nod and just smile just to get you to stop talking even when they don't understand what you're saying. So just checking in. Then the whole, I hear you saying X, is that true? You know, or it sounds like that class is one that you might want to drop, or am I off? And then you go from there. Checking up as regular as you can. I do pre-scheduled emails that go out. I forgot I even had them set up to go, and then they write back and, oh great, they did check in. Handwritten little post-it note if possible. I don't know how much caseload you have or how many students you interact with, but handwritten is always really appreciated. It takes some time to get that information in, so just being patient, and well-meaning parents popping up, you want to be careful with those. They might be keeping them from being empowered, so have a plan in place with your team and department to know how to handle that. Speak to the FERPA experts at your school. And advocate for them no matter what, whether they're with you or not with you. You're role modeling self-advocacy for them, so advocating their name, their pronouns, their whatever it is, that you can be there for them, and consult with them. You know, did I say this right, or is this something that would come off offensive? That's fine to a degree. So don't rely fully on them to educate you, to do all of that emotional labor on their own, but checking in with them is appreciated when you can. And just assessing your own progress and effectiveness. Is this working anymore? Should I still be doing this? I've done the same thing for 10 years. I should probably freshen this up a little. So yeah, we're there at the connection. You know, we're there. We're the ones making the connection. We're the one making them feel they belong. It motivates them. It motivates us. We're both satisfied with that relationship, and we're both retained and there, that we are there. The whole purpose is to make sure that we're there to support them. So if you take nothing else away from this, is it what you think they need or what they need? And it feels like, but I have years of experience and they're coming to me for this, you know, I know that they just need to get a planner. If they could just get a planner, is it what they need? And if what they need right now is to learn from their failure and let it fall, don't do the work for them. You're there for them, but you don't do the work for them. And then I just love this quote: what you say is not nearly as important as what we hear, which means the words matter, and so does the way we say them, how we say them, and what we do after we say them. So are we going to actually follow through and be there for the student? So walking the walk, and showing up. Okay. All right, so question time. I'm ready.
All right, we've got some good ones and some good comments too that I want to highlight besides the ones we already did. One about language choice. This person said language choice is important. I had a negative experience with a student who was late, and I had to explain about why we have attendance policies in place so as not to disrupt the dynamic of a student group. But the term disrupt was triggering to the student as a BIPOC student, so even that usage can be problematic.
Yes, like if we're saying threatening or aggressive, or you know, all of those words, heavy words. Yeah.
Okay. And then this question is good. Can you explain the rationale for changing from minority to minoritized? And they say I've heard two different explanations.
Yeah, there's so many. I mean, there's a lot going on with it, but essentially, it's that you're being minoritized against your will, basically. That someone else is telling you that you're a minority, and not based off of you're the majority. There's so many, and it comes down to the oppression and hierarchy of that. So minority has such a heavy load to it. By saying minority, it takes away some of that explanation why that's even the case, why that terminology is in place, and it provides a little more power to the people in question. But there's, again, just like you were saying, there's so many definitions and reasons and you know, discussion on that right now. But that's really where my end is coming from, is like moving toward that out of showing that this was something that was put on them.
All right, and awesome. And the next question is it correct to say standard English when referring to academic writing?
Lots of schools of thought on that as well. There's so many things. I would say academic writing is the good go-to. It's even more than even talking about what the English itself is. One of my roles in the past was writing specialist, and I worked just helping students with papers and things like that. And I think for that feedback, I always erred on the side of, for academic writing in a college setting, for a university, a paper has to be formal in this way, and this is the accepted usage, XYZ. Yeah.
Makes sense. And then the next question, how can I empower my undergraduate staff to facilitate anti-racist discussion rules?
That is going to require the support of them to be trained in some way, to be able to handle it when there is something that occurs during that discussion. Because too often we're throwing faculty out into these classes with, okay, you're going to show a unit on slavery, now have this discussion group, and have no basis in how do we handle it when it starts getting heated in here. So it depends on if your school has a diversity office devoted to that kind of thing. If it's not a type of environment where they have trainings on that, there are things online to, like if you're overseeing those first year faculty or things like that, like coming together to talk about that before you launch into those heavy topics is important. It's still, those type of things can pop up even in a conversation in a classroom that's not necessarily devoted to a racist type of topic when it comes to things like that. But yeah, it's to empower them to do so would be that you are supporting them in that dialogue, that you would be there to support them in what they were attempting to do, that you have some protocols in place, that you have procedure for that, you have some steps in place, the way that you would mediate the restorative justice piece of bringing in the student that had given the microaggression. There's different protocols for bias reporting for different schools. So it depends on that. So it would almost be, if you were trying to empower them to do so, doing some research beforehand with your school and looking at what trainings are available in-house, what can you do outside of that, and making sure that they can express themselves with how they feel. Because there's a different thing if the instructor themselves is part of a minoritized group trying to have this discussion with a class versus a white professor trying to have this conversation. So there's nuances to it, but I'd say first and foremost, because they still have to teach this class without you having the training beforehand, it would just be saying, I fully trust that you are having the best intentions. Do know that your intentions don't make a difference if you've made a negative impact or if a student has made a negative impact, and we will make sure that we address it and support you through that process of addressing it if it's something against you or if you need further assistance in that. But it really comes down to proactive. It's really got to be training in advance.
All right, and then this next bit is just a comment by somebody saying, I always look up how to pronounce names I am unfamiliar with on my class roster before the first day of class.
Yes.
Seems like a simple thing, but probably a good idea. And then the next question is, are PDFs accessible for assistive technology, or is it better to put all text in the body of an email?
So you're trying to send a PDF as an attachment or in the body of the email itself. I'd say it's always good to have text in the email itself. If you have a pretty thing that you want to add to it, that's excellent. Also have that. If you have a PDF that you want to attach in some way, great. But I'd say when in doubt, always have the written version and then add the enhancement.
All right, and then the next question was somebody, they messaged and asked if they could ask this over voice, so I'm gonna go ahead and unmute them. And Greg, if you're able to speak now, you are free to ask your question.
Greg from Reach at the University of Louisville. We are a tutoring center, And thank you for allowing me to ask my question directly. And at my university, I think we do, a pretty good job of making minority or traditionally marginalized students feel welcome. At the very least, I think it's rare that we see or hear messaging or, rhetoric from faculty or staff that's, intended to make them feel unwelcome. And I think we can always do better. And I really appreciate this kind of training that you're giving that helps us do a better job of that. But here, in Kentucky, we have a lot of students that are from rural areas that tend to be homogenous or more conservative. And what I've heard from some of these students is that they feel like their worldview or values can be stereotyped. For instance, if they plan to vote for Trump, that they must be a racist or a bigot. And that so as a consequence, they feel like they are unwelcome in this new and very unfamiliar environment. And I think data does show that they will often self-censor because they're afraid to say the wrong thing or make a mistake that will ostracize them. So I wonder your take on what we can do, to help those students feel welcome when they might feel like, the person on the outside looking in, that they are the minority. And that's all I had. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. There's a lot of talk of how come there's not White History Month and how come there's not a parade for us. And yes, I hear that a lot. One of the things that those focus groups that I mentioned that you could reach out about, absolutely do one for them as well. So I know that I was speaking about all of these other things, but you can say, all right, from our domestic students that are coming straight from here, it could be advertised as like work on a farm, have a question, all of these things, and have programming or specific workshops like when you are getting up at 4 to milk the cow and do this and all this, how can I fit in studying on top of a farm schedule, or how can I fit in scheduling? And you'd be surprised at they're coming out saying, wow, this was something that's for me, I feel seen, I feel heard. You're not explicitly saying this is the white student workshop that we're going to be doing, but it's more based on need and support. And that's the same thing that I'm saying for these other populations, is the same exact thing. What are the needs and supports that you're looking for? Regardless of what you have, we have just split you into these focus groups just to like dig in and get some information, but then you build your programming and your stuff out of the material that you got. Okay, we have 90% of our students said they take 3 buses to get here to campus. Maybe we set something up near the bus stop. Maybe we have different hours of operation on Thursdays because that bus line stops working. So hearing you say to them, we want to hear from you, hey, take this little brief survey, and then you start having programming that kind of fits some of the needs that seem to be coming from that particular population. It does make a difference to say, wow, there's all these different things, and this one seems to be perfect for me based off of what you're hearing and seeing. And you could ask even residence hall directors, student activities, what are they seeing? What kind of music, what kind of songs? Like, you'll see a connection there, and you can collaborate on getting that data, from what they gather, even from admissions, to see how many of them come from these areas and what is their biggest complaint. There's no coffee on the way to campus. Maybe they come and there's a little thing set up full of coffee for them when they come in, and you ask them some questions from there. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Greg, for that question. And this next one is from Sandra. Anti-racism is considered by many as part of critical race theory, which is being banned in more and more states. Sadly, some learning centers have stopped their diversity training because of this. How do you suggest that centers address teaching anti-racism in a way that won't put a target on their institutions for promoting CRT?
Yes, so this is where I'm never a proponent of lying. I am a believer in omitting some things and tweaking language. So I know just what you said, you can't say some of the things that I had said in here, right? Like, you can't specifically say that stuff. What you can say is, that you're here for each individual student, that your unique circumstances in your life that have led you to the point you're at today are going to impact how you learn from me, how you attend these tutoring sessions, how you are in my workshop. And we see each individual student holistically. All of the factors that impact your ability to learn will be addressed. We're going to make sure to work with you. Keeping it open that way, that's still very explicitly saying, I see you and I see that you have many different things that are going on in your life, without maybe specifically pointing out which areas or saying it's identity based. Maybe you go more with you have situations, you've had experiences, you have circumstances. We want to hear more about how we can better serve your needs. And then the survey stuff doesn't necessarily have to be all of those different, again, the terms. It's more, do you care for siblings, children, elderly, your parents? Are you, you know, financially struggling with these aspects? Does it keep you from getting to campus to come to our programs? You know, so I'd say addressing it in a way that you see each person individually, and every student here matters, and we're going to work to support you through those things. They can then speak to you one-on-one about the things that are impacting them, but I think it's a matter of being creative with the way that you phrase it. There's definitely some things. I can pull up some of the resources that I have about that. I didn't have that in the document yet, but I can make sure it's updated with Rachel on some of that for you.
All right, awesome. Next question is, what is the best way to be inclusive of neurodiverse or disabled staff / coworkers? We do a lot for our students, and I feel like staff have to do a lot to get the same sensitivity or thought.
Yes. So first of all, they should get accommodations is the first thing to protect them, because if you go on the grace of, oh, I work with a great little group of people and they're going to support me, if they leave and get a different job and you get a new supervisor, you're not going to be protected in the same way. So the Americans with Disabilities Act, so ADA workplace accommodations, similar to what the students have for their academic accommodations, but should be done for the workplace. And that seems difficult to do when it's not like a mobility issue, like a physical disability that you can understand, like they're deaf, they need an interpreter in this meeting. If you're having an invisible disability and it's, I can't, this is me personally, I can't understand what's going on if I don't have subtitles on or captions when I'm watching a video. So just the self-advocacy piece of saying at the beginning when someone goes to show a video, having to raise my hand, you know, hey, could you pop the captions on there? I have to do that all the time. I shouldn't have to do that. It should just be everyone uses captions, but it doesn't happen every time. There's a lot to be said about knowing that some things may not be inferred. So if it's a birthday party celebration, making sure to be explicit, like we are going to go in this room and have cake, you know, go ahead and join us, and knowing that things need to be written down as well as verbally expressed. So anytime there's a meeting and there's like tasks rattled off that you're just saying them, a follow-up email afterward is really helpful of just, this is what we talked about, breaking it down in a little list. Having some decompression time, like you don't have to always have lunch together, that you're allowing someone to shut their door sometimes or be away from the hustle and bustle. And you know, making sure that they have a chance to discuss things that they're excited about. Like I said, sort of the monologuing, like have a chance to discuss things that they're happy about, and trying to remember facial expression doesn't always match emotion. You know, that's a big one in a workplace environment. So supporting them with, like, they have low affect or affect that isn't considered what you normally see when they're discussing something happy, but knowing that that's who they are and allowing for that.
All right, lovely. And we had a couple of comments. I think these came in, right? I'm reading all this in the order it came in, and I think these came in after the question about PDFs. Some helpful comments about that. Speechify reads PDFs, but it's not always free. And then another person said, our organization always sends text below the PDF for screen readers. And this one I don't think was it was in relation to something else, but it said one suggestion I heard in another session was having a document or a way for students to submit questions anonymously during and after class so they aren't concerned about their questions or response ostracizing them.
Yes, yes, yep. Always going for multiple ways for students to engage and participate. So, you know, tickets at the end of class, handing things in anonymous, filling out a form. Those Mentimeter is a great one for doing different polls that are live and they can see answers come in, but they're anonymous. Yeah, that's great.
And I believe that is all the questions that we had. So we are going to go ahead and wrap up for now. I know if Lindsay, that is how to get in touch with you up there.
Yes. So LinkedIn is my best way to reach me. Okay. And you can follow up with questions. I'm available.
All right, awesome. So we are going to be putting this up on the on our YouTube page, and we will send email to everybody register when that is ready. I want to thank everyone for joining us today, and a reminder, you can email me at rachelc@engineerica.com if you're interested in a complimentary semester trial. Sorry, I sent that to just Greg by accident. And we hope to also see you at the conference in October if that's something you're interested in. Let me go ahead and paste the link for that as well, if I can grab that 1 second here. And all right, so thank you again, everyone, for joining us today, and we hope to see you at the next session. And thank you, of course, Lindsay, for being such an amazing, speaker. Sorry, I just saw another question, a question about the PowerPoint. We are not going to be sharing the actual PowerPoint, but we are going to be providing a list of resources when we send out the recording, so we'll send that as well. All right, everyone, thank you so much for your time and have a great rest of your day.
Bye.